I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to talk about this camera. I have to keep my voice down because it's late at night and my family's asleep, so I gotta talk softly. Hopefully, you can hear me. Anyway, it's not gonna be like an actual review of the camera because that's not what I do. That's not what I want to do. But I did want to talk about it because I had a few questions myself about it. I know some people have questions about it. It's the Sony ZV-E1. It is a very compact, small, full frame camera. I think it's, at least at the time, it was the smallest full frame camera ever made. It does 4K video with no line skipping or any sort of image degradation with that full readout on the sensor. But the questions that people have about this camera, I think I'm talking too quietly, but whatever. The questions that people have about this camera always, it relates to the crop modes. For anybody who doesn't know what crop means, and there probably are some people who don't know what that means, so I'll just say basically you're just zooming into the image. You're cropping in means zooming in. And there are a few modes on this camera that do that. And because it's a low resolution sensor, 12 megapixel sensor, when you crop in, there have been some criticisms of the camera that, the Sony ZV-E1 is a 4K camera only. In other words, the sensor is only 12 megapixels, but it's actually only 10 megapixels for video recording. When you crop in using the crop modes, which are active stabilization, which is a small crop, about 1.12 times. And then you have dynamic active stabilization, which is about 1.45 times crop. This is just to try to smooth out your footage when you're walking or panning or doing camera movements. So basically, if you want the smoothest footage, it's going to crop into that sensor, a 4K sensor. So when you crop in on the dynamic active stabilization, it's going to be recording video less than 4K. Even though you're recording in 4K, because you're cropping in, it's doing a digital zoom. So you're going to be losing some resolution, and some people think that that's a real weakness of this camera. That was what, like DP Review did a review about the camera when it came out a couple years ago, and they said, or at least one of the reviewers said that it might be terrible footage because they're upscaling the footage from less than 4K to get it up to 4K. Sony uses some sort of pixel enlargement process where they upscale the footage, I guess. I'm not sure how it works, but they say that Sony says that on their website that you will not lose as much image quality because of their ability to use this whatever clear image zoom technology or pixel enlargement technology, whatever you want to call it. And so honestly, all of this is really meaningless. Only camera nerds care about this stuff. The main thing is that this is a great camera. It's on sale now for like $1,900, and I paid the full price for it, which is $300 more than that. Body only. So yeah, don't worry about the dynamic active stabilization mode, which you don't even have to use. I hardly ever have used it. And you can use the active mode, and when you record in active stabilization, it's about 8 megapixels, which is 4K. That's exactly 4K resolution. The other mode, when you um, use dynamic active stabilization, they also have auto framing and frame stabilizer modes. These also have crops, and they use or at least one of them uses the dynamic active stabilization. That would be the auto framing, I believe. But yeah, so you're gonna get loss in resolution. But you know, this camera has the same sensor as the A7S III, which is one of the best video cameras ever made, and also has the same sensor as the um, FX3, which is what, like almost $4,000. And then the FX6 has the same sensor as the FX6. These are cinema cameras, and that's like a $6,000 camera. And this is a lot cheaper, and you get the same sensor. You get great autofocus, superb low light shooting. I'm filming on my cell phone right now, but I will show footage from the camera. I just wanted to show the camera, but yeah, it is an unbelievable camera. And you know, the only time that you really would need the dynamic active stabilization is if you're like walking really fast or doing really rough handheld movements with the camera, or if you're in a car and it's going real fast and you want to smooth out the footage or something. Then you can try the dynamic active stabilization. It's still going to look good. Like the 1080p, the 1080p footage out of this camera looks really sharp and detailed. So you're not losing much. Anyway, some people say Sony doesn't have the best color science. I think it looks fine. And you can always adjust the colors if you want to do any sort of color grading afterwards when you're editing anyway. So that's sort of a moot point anyway. Most people who buy this, it is called a vlogging camera, but most people are going to just press record, maybe try a different picture profile. Like I got the vivid profile on or whatever. So yeah, it's a great camera, and I don't think anybody should worry about this crop issue, about how it crops into the sensor, which is so you'll have your image will be degraded. You know, only if you're using those modes, dynamic active stabilization and the auto framing, those crop modes, frame stabilizer, whatever, which these are sort of just specialty modes, which you don't need to use. You don't need to use the dynamic active stabilization. I would use active stabilization instead of standard, because standard, you know, Sony does not have the greatest in-body image stabilization in their cameras, at least in this one. You know, if you want the best image stabilization for video, you probably should get Panasonic. But Sony is obviously one of the top camera companies, and this is an incredible camera. So if you are thinking about it, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to sell you the camera, because I'm not making anything, you know, off of this. I have no affiliate links. And I bought the camera over a year ago, my own money, and But whatever, you know, it might be helpful if somebody is watching this to see if you should buy it or not. I will tell you right now, you're not going to find a better camera for this price, a full frame camera that can do everything that this camera can do. The slow motion capabilities are astounding. You got 4K 60 without a crop, 4K 120p. It only has a 1.1 times crop, which is very small. And the 4K footage in here is amazing. And in 120, and it's for 120 frames per second, you can really get amazing slow motion. I have a video up with when I was at the Art Institute in Chicago. That whole video is shot with this camera. So if you're interested, I could put a link in the description. You can watch and see, because I got some slow motion footage in there. And also it does take photos, but they are the 12 megapixel photos. Actually, I think it's a little bit less, like 11 megapixels. But anyway, the photos look good. I mean, I've taken pictures with this camera, and, you know, so if you want to take photos with it, you can. You just can't do a whole lot of cropping in when you're editing, because, you know, it is only 12 megapixels, and most people want more than that, obviously, if you're going to do photography. But this is for video. This camera is designed for video, and for people who want to film themselves. I don't usually do that, but any sort of filming, it's for video, designed specifically for video, just like the A7S III and those cinema cameras. And like other cinema cameras, some of Canon's cinema cameras are very low megapixel count, like was it the C70? It's got like 9 megapixels or something. The ARRI cameras from, you know, movie studios have like 13 megapixels or something. And yeah, I mean, some of the most famous movie cameras are shooting in like 2.7K resolution. So you don't need a lot of megapixels for video. It looks great. Like, you can project it on a theater screen and it looks sharp. I mean, normally you're going to be shooting in 4K. You're going to get some incredibly sharp and detailed footage. Now, is it the sharpest, most detailed footage ever? No. I mean, there are cameras that have, you know, 6K, 8K, but you don't need that. Most people only have a 4K screen. They're not going to be watching it in 6K or 8K, so it doesn't matter. But even 1080p looks incredible in this camera. So like I said, I will say, if you do get it, and you want to do the high quality video, 4K, or you do need to have a pretty capable computer or editing machine, like a laptop that's, you know, pretty up to date, because I had a old Windows computer that was way out of date as far as the processor, and I looked at some of the files that came out of this camera, and they were like a lot of artifacts, especially, you know, just like digital artifacts. And I was like, what's wrong? I thought there was something wrong with the camera, but turns out, you know, the files were corrupted because I didn't have enough, I mean, the computer couldn't handle the files. So you have to have a computer that can handle these. Like, I have a Mac now, and it works perfectly, you know. But it's got to be a good computer if you want to use this camera. No, I don't want, you know, somebody to get this camera and then they can't even edit the files because their computer is too slow or something, or too old or whatever. And then you have to buy a new computer, and it costs you a lot. So just keep that in mind. And also, you know, the storage, it only has one card slot. So it's not like a pro camera, you know, like two dual card slots where you can do backup recording. It is more like, you know, for social media, like YouTube videos and just what I'm doing. And I will compare it to the cell phone that I'm filming on right now. It's an iPhone. You will see the difference between this camera and a cell phone. This camera is going to give you a lot better image quality. And since it's full frame, you can get the out of focus backgrounds and better dynamic range. And the sensor also has very low rolling shutter, unlike some cameras that have the skewing, bending artifacts when you pan fast. So, I mean, it's really a good camera all around. You could use lenses if you want to get better stabilization with this camera. You could try to get a lens that has optical steady shot, which is the lens image stabilization. But there are not very many lenses that actually work together or in tandem with the IBIS, with the camera's in-body image stabilization. So there's only a few lenses that can work with the camera's IBIS. So, and that's what led me to getting an APS-C lens to use on this camera, which is not really recommended. But it does work because Sony has clear image zoom. So if you put the APS-C lens on the camera, you can turn off the APS-C crop mode in the menu, and then you'll be able to shoot in 4K. You're going to get vignettes, you're going to get dark corners, and it's going to look like a fisheye, you know, with dark corners. So all you do is just press the, I got it's a little magnifying glass here on the back of the camera. You just press it and it will use clear image zoom, and you will be able to get rid of those dark corners. Or you could use dynamic active stabilization, which will also crop in and get rid of the dark corners. But the clear image zoom, I think, may be a better option just because it's supposed to have a less loss in image quality with that clear image zoom. It's supposed to keep high resolution, and so you're not losing as much resolution when you crop in. And once you get this camera, if you get this camera, you know, you're pretty much set for life as far as getting a camera for low light performance and high quality 4K video. The only thing that the only weakness is the stabilization, but you can also get a gimbal, you can use a monopod, you can use a tripod, or you can just be very careful when you're filming and not make a bunch of jerky movements, and don't go walking around filming yourself all the time, because nobody wants to see that, I don't think. At least I don't. Hi, I'm filming myself. But no, you can if you want. That's your thing. But yeah, I will switch over to this camera now so you can see the difference. Okay, this is standard stabilization. This lens is not stabilized, just the camera. Okay, and the ground is a bit unsteady here, so that is standard stabilization. Active stabilization. This is active stabilization. And I think it works fine, as you can see. Very smooth. And that's active stabilization. Just a slight crop, tiny. Alright, this is dynamic active stabilization. Dynamic active. Has a bigger crop, but it is smoother. And let me know if you can see any difference in image quality, but and I'll check myself when I look at the files, but to me it's probably going to look pretty similar. And you see it's very smooth. And I can walk faster. And again, the ground is not really even, so, and I'm walking fast, so I don't, it's like a gimbal almost. Yeehaw! So there are a lot of reviews out on this camera. You can read them, read articles, you can watch video reviews, a lot of YouTube reviews. And so I'm not really saying anything that hasn't already been said. You do need to watch out for overheating with this camera, because if you're filming in the high frame rates, it can overheat. You have to put the temperature in the menu. You have to set it to high instead of standard. It's in the menu. Again, I can put a link in the description how to do that, because you definitely need to put the temperature on high instead of standard. Standard will overheat on you, especially if you're in 4K 60, 4K 120. You can't, but there's no reason to record a long time in those modes anyway. Okay, so this is the image quality that you can see. Camera's doing most of the work for me here. I just have it in the shutter priority, and yeah, so hopefully it looks okay. But I know the image quality looks good. I'm in 4K 24p right now, and you can see what it looks like. This is what it looks like. And you know, I'm using a pretty good lens. I'm using one of my better lenses. We're using the Zeiss lens. It's like probably my best lens. 35mm f2.8 lens. Thought I'd put my best lens on there just to give me my best. And it's not the greatest lens in the world anyway, but just, but any, any kind of decent lens will look, you're gonna get great image quality. If you put a crappy lens on there, you're gonna have to live with what the lens can do. But if I'm gonna show some images, some sample images later, you'll see what kind of image you get with pictures and videos. I use this 35 Zeiss lens. When I was at the Art Institute, everything was shot on this lens. So this is what you get. And yeah, I'm happy with this camera. If you want to film for longer periods of time, like, then you would probably have to get a different camera, because it is not gonna record for, 2 hours or more. It is such a small camera that it will overheat. It has no fan or anything. So if you want that, or if you want longer recording times, then this is not the camera that you should get. But if you're filming, a few minutes at a time, or I'm filming, 5-10 minutes or more, 20 minutes, you should be fine. Just watch out for the 4K 60, 4K 120, because that will cause some overheating if you go too long. But other than that, it's just a fantastic camera. I kind of bought it like just on a whim. I watched this review of it. I wanted a full frame camera, and the guy doing the review, he's sort of I don't want to call him a shill for Sony, but he's basically just trying to sell you the camera. But he said, that this is the best camera you can get for low light. That's what I wanted. And I watched another follow-up review of the same guy. He's like, this is the best camera in the world for low light shooting. So if that's what you're into, you're up at night. I'm always up at night. I don't really go out much at night, but I'm up at night. So I like to be able to have some low light capabilities. And this camera definitely has that. The high ISO. It's got dual native ISO. Believe it's 640 and then 12,800. So it is really clean. Noise-wise, you're not going to get much noise at all. Yeah, I mean, it's just a great camera for low light. But all around, it's not just for low light shooting. It's just all around good. You can add your own LUTs to it if that's what you're into. I don't do that, but I'm sure there are more serious videographers who love to do that. So yeah, I just wanted to show you what it looks like when you compare it to the cell phone. Hopefully the exposure is right. If it's not, then blame the camera, because I'm not in manual mode, so don't blame me. So I'll put those images in that I have, and you'll see the kind of image quality you get with this camera. And you can create art with it. I mean, this whole thing about, and I got caught up in it too, this whole thing about, the resolution and what is the image quality, how many megapixels, is the stabilization good enough? Is there too much wobbling, or is it, all this? Most people, the average person, the majority, people who watch videos, or people who watch movies. Obviously, I'm not making movies, but watching a YouTube video or something, people watch it not because of the camera, or because of how many megapixels you have in the camera, or how stable your footage, how smooth your footage is when you're walking or something. That's not what people care about. Most people, the average person, they just want to watch something that is interesting and that is meaningful. So that's something to remember. You can talk all day about the technical aspects, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much. It's just a way to create something. And because it is a good camera, a very good camera, it does make it easy to create something that's high quality as far as the image quality. And so there's that. And you do have the slow motion if that's what you're into. I would use it very sparingly, but and as far as photography, if you're just using this for social media, posting on whatever social media, these JPEGs or pictures that come out of the camera are going to be perfectly fine. You can use it for photography if you want to. It's definitely something if you want to do street photography and go out on the street with it. It's so small. People aren't even going to notice it, especially with this little lens. Put a little lens on there. This is the only full frame camera I have, and I'm gonna keep it until it can't turn on. I'm gonna keep it till it can no longer be used. Cameras are cool. I mean, you can get wrapped up in all the specifications and what does it do and what are all the new features, and camera companies, they got to come up with a new feature every year they have to release something new. If they release a new camera, it's got to have some sort of upgrade. It's got to have a faster processor or better autofocus but honestly, none of that stuff even matters. Like, the only thing that matters is what you're actually filming, not what you're filming with. So just keep that in mind. I got to keep that in mind. And do something artistic and try to do something good with it and not do anything that's contrary to, well, for me, it would be contrary to what God's will is. But for other people, maybe they don't think in those terms, but yeah, try to do something decent and create something beautiful or capture something beautiful and something innocent. And you can do that. I can do it. And something good. You can do something evil with a camera, but you can also do something good with it. And so just got to try to do something good with this camera and with my life. Another thing is this camera has great audio. The built-in mics, like, you don't even really need an external mic, because I'm using one now, but yeah. So I picked up my friend Pete. He was always saying, like, you can't hear me in your videos. But with this camera, like, you can hear if somebody's relatively close by. Like, it'll pick up your voice. That's great audio. Got a 3-capsule mic. So it's good for that. And what else is it good for? It's good for YouTube videos. Just don't worry about cropping in on a sensor, because it might lessen the image quality a tiny bit. If you watch movies, the image, as you see in a cinematic kind of footage or filmic footage, it's not the sharpest. And especially if you watch movies from some years ago, or decades ago, the image quality is not super, super sharp, and you don't want it to be. Like, it doesn't have to be, ultra, ultra, ultra high definition, because that doesn't even look good. I mean, it looks ugly, and it looks like, somebody just did some homemade video and it's super sharp, but doesn't look like a film, doesn't look artistic, doesn't look good, in my opinion. So I would not worry about, the image quality being degraded in any way, or you don't have enough resolution. not enough detail or whatever. It's plenty. It is plenty. And so I'm gonna leave it at that, and I'm gonna get some sleep. And thank you for watching. I will put the images, the videos, and the pictures that I took, video clips and pictures I took in the video. I'll just put them up. I don't like the, when you watch YouTube videos and they always put this music with the pictures. If you're just posting pictures, images, like you have to have music playing in the background. First of all, most of the music that is being played on YouTube is terrible because it's not by artists that are known or I mean, it's not all bad, but you don't need music to look at pictures, to look at photos. Like, if you open a photo album on your own, like, do you need like a soundtrack playing in the background while you look at pictures? No. So I did that myself. I put some music in the background. Some of these, my supplemental visions videos, you don't need music to look at pictures though. So I'll probably just put the video clips, throw some pictures in, use the audio from the video clips as background. I'm an amateur. I would like to think that I can get better at this, and I can if I put more time into it, but like I said, I'm just trying to do something with it, something decent, and we'll see what happens with that. I'll just continue with the supplemental visions videos. Again, if you don't know what it means, you can watch that Art Institute video where it's called At the Art Institute, and I'll put a link for it. But that's where I explain, one thing I will say, I explain what supplemental visions means. One thing I will say about that video, I was not being careful with the stabilization when I was filming. I was walking around just being very haphazard and not trying to get the smooth footage, or not even knowing that I should, because just not knowing how to hold the camera or walk with it. And so a lot of that footage is kind of bad as far as being unstable. But you can get over that. And it's not the camera's fault. It was my fault, the way I was holding it and moving with it and walking around with it. It was my fault that it was unstable. But it's not terrible. And so anyway, I'm going to stop talking now.
This little number, yeah, A minor. I should have seen it coming. When I need you there, hear the sound go by. Got to.
Responded to our texts, our posts, our emails, and everything else. You guys were awesome. Thank you to the Park District and Thank you. We got 2 more solos.
I don't care.
We're not there. That building, it was a civil war camp. It was known